started or just join the space. I think we'll also get some of the accounts, the project accounts that are here as speakers for more visibility overall. But we're very excited to be doing this, and a big thank you to our guests to joining us in the very first staking sats with pSTAKE space. Initially, when we announced the move to build for Bitcoin with a liquid staking solution, what we wanted to do was talk more about the ecosystem, because there was some sort of a lack in mediums to have conversations about what's being built on Bitcoin, or maybe these conversations were happening in a very siloed manner. So what we want to do with this series essentially is to bring the best builders in the space, bring the best people that are building on Bitcoin, and essentially do that. Have a very unfiltered, very casual, very open-ended conversation about Bitcoin. Whether that's scaling, whether that's yields, whether that's layer 2s, BTCfi, institutions, you get it. So this is the very first edition, and today we're discussing the BTCfi landscape with some of the leading protocols that are building in this ecosystem. And like I said, we'll keep it very open-ended, stick to some points like yields, growth, and why everyone here started to build on Bitcoin in the first place. And what we can do is, I think we have a lot of people already tuned in, and we also have a strict timeline. We can get started already with just introductions from our wonderful speakers today. So can everyone please give a brief intro about yourself, which part of the world you're joining in from today, what you're building for Bitcoin, and any of the recent updates from your project?
Absolutely. Hey everyone, I'm Mikil. I'm the co-founder of pSTAKE, and I'm joining in from Dubai. Dubai is my base. Been here for a couple of years. I've been in the space officially for about 5 years now, primarily focused on the product side so far, but now looking to talk more about the business angle of things, and obviously have been operating in the Cosmos ecosystem for the last 4.5 years now. Very excited to be out there and talk about something I feel a lot more comfortable talking about, which is Bitcoin. Building for Bitcoin, the objective is for us to get people excited about using Bitcoin to generate some yields, and that's the most I would say that's the goal for us, because Bitcoin so far doesn't have any inherent yield to it, but now with newer developments happening in the Bitcoin ecosystem, we see a lot of opportunities for yield to be generated on Bitcoin, and that's what we are looking to work on.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Mikil, for that intro. Peter, we have Peter from Velar. Do you want to go next, please?
Yeah, hi guys. I'm Peter Watson, the CMO of Velar. We're a DeFi protocol on Bitcoin. So it's pretty simple for me. I think, I've been in the game now with kind of the crypto space since 2016, 2017, something like that. And, I've seen these multiple cycles go through where everyone gets dragged into quote unquote shitcoinery, ends up getting wrecked, and then the cycle starts again. So, I'm just really proud of what the team's building here at Velar. We're building the whole kind of user interface application layer on top of Bitcoin, right? Which I think is the most important thing that anyone can be doing right now in this space. We know how this goes. We know how this ends up, and we all know it in the end, Bitcoin wins. So, I'm just really kind of, thankful for this being my task right now, which is getting more people involved in the Bitcoin space. So, thanks for having me on here. It sounds like a really good initiative. So, glad to be supporting.
Absolutely. I think that's what we're all here for, to make Bitcoin win. I think that was very well put. Next up, we have Jeff from Merlin.
Yeah. Hey guys. I'm Jeff from the Merlin chain. We started building on Bitcoin layer 1 last year. We built like several products on layer 1, and we started with Merlin I think the end of last year, and we launched our mainnet in February this year. Right now we have about 2.5 million active addresses on Merlin chain. We have over 10 million transactions there, billions of transaction volume. Right now, there are $2 billion value assets are staying on Merlin even after the staking period. And so we're just trying to bring the liquidity and assets from Bitcoin layer 1 into the EVM compatible chain. This allows users and builders to actually build stuff easier with lower gas fee, faster transaction, and we support all these Bitcoin layer 1 assets such as Ordinals, BRC20, Runes. And we want these assets and users to trade here. And yeah, I think in the past, 1 to 2 months, we have about a $13 billion valued Bitcoin bridging and bridge out. So the bridge is very efficient, zero security issues. Users are trading here, hundreds of dApps are launched here, and right now we're working with the liquid restaking protocol like Solve, and I think they have over like $1 billion TVL right now, and we're distributing those Bitcoin, Merlin Bitcoin and Solve Bitcoin, into all the other chains, such as like Nina, Scroll, Arbitron, ZK Link, Mao. I think there are over like 10, 20 different chains are, accepting Merlin Bitcoin and Solve Bitcoin to do the staking and restaking on their chain as well. So yeah, happy to be here, and yeah, let's have a great time.
Great to have you here, and I think we've all seen the great progress Merlin has made to grow the BTCfi ecosystem. So thank you so much for that. And lastly, but not the least, we have Ingamar from Sovryn. I'm so sorry if I've butchered your name, but happy to have you here.
No, that works. Ingamar is the perfect pronunciation. Thanks everyone for having me here. I'm the head of ecosystem growth at Sovryn. I've been in crypto since about 2017. My first job in this space was head of marketing at Celsius Network. You guys probably never heard of it, but I was there for a while. Learned a lot about passive yield, and that was something that I've become fascinated with thereafter. And I learned a lot about centralized companies, and I learned a lot about CeFi then. And after that, I focused entirely on DeFi and DAOs for several years. I caught the wave of DeFi summer on Ethereum, and I had been wanting to do the same thing, but with Bitcoin. I always thought that Bitcoin was the safest, most secure, most long-term store of wealth asset. And I wanted to do cool DeFi things that were more advanced than just hodling. So that was when I was approached by Sovryn in 2020. They said we're building a DEX on Bitcoin layer 2, and I was all about it. So I've been working there ever since. Now head of ecosystem growth. We've been consistently at about 130, 150 million TVL. We had been the largest Bitcoin DeFi DEX, I guess up until like the offshoot of these Bitcoin layer 2s, but we've been pretty much the OGs in the Bitcoin DeFi space, for a while now. Before it was cool, but we're happy that, that the space is growing exponentially.
100% agreed, sir. And thank you so much for joining in today. I think what you touched upon was a great point. Like, the ETH DeFi somewhat happened. Why not that for Bitcoin? And I think we're kind of heading towards that direction as we grow this ecosystem. And again, thank you so much for everyone for coming here today. A bit about myself. I'm Aditya. I like to say that I look after vibes at pSTAKE in a way. So anything that's cool, anything that's towards the external facing side is something that I look at. And I'm very much honored to moderate the space today. So let's get right into it. This is actually a very much of a coincidence as well as an auspicious day to, I think, have the space as well, because it's pizza day today, right? So who's had pizza already?
I'm trying to be on a health kick, especially after Mikil kind of showed me up for not going to the gym. So no pizza for me today.
I think that's a good one. I think you'll have to adjust as times evolve with pizza day as well. Maybe firstly not spend 10,000 Bitcoin to buy a pizza, or maybe not have that pizza in the first place at all. Amazing. What I want to start off with is maybe we can go around the table with everyone. Is why kind of you guys, everyone gravitated towards the Bitcoin ecosystem and kind of start building on Bitcoin. Because for me, when I look at Bitcoin, it is summarized by just one word, which is opportunity. I think it is an opportunity for everyone to participate in an open and transparent financial world. And that world allows you to build on top of it multiple opportunities for everyone to kind of succeed and to progress and grow in life. So maybe starting with you, Peter, maybe do you want to talk about, why Velar is building it for Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think the great thing with Velar is that the whole kind of founding team and the kind of whole initial team have all been from the community, right? So it's everybody who's been in the ecosystem, from 2014 all the way up to kind of 2017, that sort of era of newcomer. So we've all seen different cycles. We've seen what's happened in every single cycle. We've seen the issues that's happened in the space. We've seen the benefits of the space, right? And we've realized and understood that nothing else really matters in the grand scheme of things. If we can find a way to utilize Bitcoin in the same way as we can with other chains and the speed of, let's say, Ethereum with the security of Bitcoin, if you can operate on Bitcoin like that, then nothing ever will come close ever again. I see this very much as the cycle where it's the last chance for these other L1s. Like if Bitcoin gets it right this cycle, you will never have to use an L1 ever again. It will always be Bitcoin, right? So we've just been around the block, right? We've seen what's worked, what hasn't worked. We've seen our friends and get wrecked by trying the latest thing, externally. We've seen lack of security issues happening across the space. And we've decided that, if we want to use products that we want to use that aren't built right now, the only thing we can do is build them. So we are just people from the community who are building for the community. Everything that was ever built on Ethereum, we're building. And we launch our perp DEX, which will be the world's first perp DEX on Bitcoin, really soon. So just community members with a passion for the space, and just started building. It's that simple.
Yeah, that's a very valid point because, it's not like this landscape has evolved just overnight, right? Because, if you see at it, the changes that have been happening in the opcode for a couple of years now is what has led to us standing here today and being able to speak about what we're building. So it's definitely, been a progressive journey that way. And, what you rightly mentioned that, if the layer ones don't get their shit together, it's kind of done for Bitcoin, not only as a store of value, not only as a currency, not only as a remittance system, but also a chain and an ecosystem as well. And
I don't think it's even if the L1s, the alternative L1s get their shit together. I think it's kind of irrelevant. I think as long as these L2s that are coming into the space for Bitcoin right now can actually do what they plan on doing and the dApps that can build on them effectively, like it doesn't matter if another L1 is faster or whatever. Like if I can use an L2 on Bitcoin with the security of Bitcoin, but with the speed of another L1 that just boasts about speed all day, then it doesn't matter how good the L1s are. The game is already set, matched, played, it's done. Because everyone at the end of the day understands that Bitcoin is the only thing that really matters in this space. And if they don't think that, then they just don't know what they're talking about. Because we've seen enough cycles right now where Bitcoin always is the dominant force. And all we should be caring about in this space is security. And all we should be caring about in this space is utilizing the assets within the chain in a secure manner. So if Bitcoin can do that, like, it doesn't matter how good anything else is, Bitcoin's won.
Yeah, I think that's very well put. I think, maybe economic security just becomes a meme if it is backed by Bitcoin. And actually speaking of L2s, maybe Jeff, do you want to, chime in here and, talk about the journey and, why Merlin tried to tackle this problem to begin with?
I think I will talk more about Bitcoin Layer 1 for this question because Merlin is actually my first, Web3 project. Like I've been building in Web 2 area for like 10 years, but I bought my first Bitcoin in 2012, 2013, because like my main investor invested, Ripple and Coinbase at that time. So like all my friends are in crypto. I traded a lot, being through the ICO, DeFi Summer, NFT and GameFi and all that stuff. But, I didn't, like decide to go into Web3, until last year with Ordinals. So I think, before this year, people don't talk about Bitcoin Layer 2. And before like today, people don't talk about BTCfi. I think that has a reason. Like when we're building on Ordinals, we build over 10, free dApps, around like recursive protocols, around, on-chain content, decentralized on-chain forum, on-chain, email system. And we do a lot like around the on-chain game engine, which is like Bitmap. Like it's our a company name, Bitmap Tech, and it's fully decentralized, free to inscribe, and we build BRC420. So what I was trying to say is, without those assets, users, communities, transactions on Bitcoin Layer 1, and this allows users to create these assets on Bitcoin Layer 1, people don't really care about Bitcoin layer 2. Like before last year, when you say you are building a Bitcoin layer 2, people will laugh at you, right? Because like if you want to trade Bitcoin, you can go to Coinbase or Binance or OKX. But with all these assets and communities and like variety of protocols on Bitcoin layer 1, users do have need to trade on Bitcoin layer 2. Because like when the gas fee is high, when the market is hot, it's kind of impossible for you guys to trade on Bitcoin layer 1. When you try to buy something for $100, you have to pay $200 gas fee. This is just insane. So after this, as a user, as a builder, we realize, the needs for Bitcoin layer 2, no matter it's EVM compatible or non-EVM. But users do need a place to trade those assets, to build around those assets. And without smart contract, there's like very little thing you can build on Bitcoin layer 1, which we did. So that's why we started Merlin last year. And like most of our users are actually from Bitcoin layer 1, from ordinals, from runes. Like right now, like I think the BRC20 and runes, on Merlin is just after Binance, more than any other CEX, because people need a place to trade. People need a place to build the apps around those assets. I think that's the reason, we built for Merlin, because like I always said, by the beginning of the Merlin chain, we're not building this for Bitcoin itself, because Bitcoin itself doesn't need, BTCfi or ecosystems, but we are actually building for Bitcoin and Bitcoin related assets. And that's why we're still pushing, to build around those assets, to grow those communities. And then, when we have all these users and all these assets, then we can have DeFi protocols around those assets, and then we have native yields for Bitcoin. And that's my whole point. And I think that's the motivation when we start building Merlin chain.
I think that's very well put, and you summarize, I think the journey that you mentioned, as well as, the emergence of Bitcoin native yields, I think, which is a very big factor. Obviously, I think the scaling part is one thing, the infra part is one thing, but if these inherent yields don't exist, then there is no point of BTCfi to exist, right? Because otherwise you could just have a wrap BTC on Ethereum that allows you to do the same DeFi activities as any other token that exists, which is pointless, right? So that was quite well put. Next, Ingamar, from your end, what is Sovryn trying to do and, build for Bitcoin, and why you are building for Bitcoin?
Sure. Well, Sovryn originated under the premise that anything that improves upon what Bitcoin can do will eventually be adopted by Bitcoin. So in late 2020, we called ourselves actually Bitcoin mutants, because we weren't quite maxis in the sense that we demonized EVM, we demonized smart contracts or anything that other ecosystems were building on. I think we appreciated them and looked at them as like test nets for what could eventually be functioning on Bitcoin one day. So we appreciate the EVM as a way for building DeFi applications on, and the Ethereum ecosystem, it at the time it encouraged a lot more experimentation. Yes, it was like a mad science laboratory where there were so many experiments, things exploded, but also there were some unicorns that came from it, like AMMs, which we all know and love, like CDPs, like DAI, NFTs, perps. We saw all these things as very, very valuable, and that eventually we could bring all these primitives over to Bitcoin, which would render a lot of these layer ones kind of obsolete once the day comes where we have all the infrastructure available to do everything that we would want to do in the Ethereum ecosystem on Bitcoin. It kind of, where Bitcoin has all the advantages and none of the limitations. So we've been building AMM swaps, we've been building leverage, lending and borrowing all in one place in one single suite. So any Bitcoiner can come, bridge their Bitcoin in a matter of minutes, and begin trading against tokens, against USD, all in one place. So as said earlier, I work on projects that I would use myself, and that's pretty much why I joined early on.
Amazing. I think that's also well summarized by, I think, the tag that Sovryn has, which is, DeFi for Bitcoin. It's so simple, it's so sweet, and kind of takes in the entire essence of what you guys are doing. Thank you so much for that. And finally, coming to you, Mikil. Firstly, why the fuck is liquid staking for Bitcoin existing? And what is pSTAKE trying to do here?
Very good question. I think every time, I think up until last year, every time anybody would have said staking for Bitcoin, it would have been like a big argument. Today we've reached a point where the world has evolved massively, and we understand that Bitcoin staking does not mean Bitcoin is going to be a proof of stake chain. It just means you can use your Bitcoin to stake your assets and secure some other chains, thanks to the concept of restaking, which has emerged. It's become quite a dominant narrative. And I think more than a narrative, I feel like Bitcoin is the most suitable asset for securing chains. Now, Ethereum, obviously not universally, I think we've seen a lot about Ethereum restaking with Eigenlayer, right? But Ethereum is not universally adopted as a neutral asset. Bitcoin is as neutral as any asset gets in the space, or in any space, right? Like if you look at an asset class itself, it's gold that everybody wants to accumulate and Bitcoin that everybody wants to accumulate. And the fact that you can use Bitcoin, which is the most stable asset, to secure another chain through restaking, I think is pretty exciting. That's why Bitcoin staking is a cool thing, and it's getting a lot of attention today. And the moment you have Bitcoin staking, what it means is you're going to lock up your Bitcoin and you're going to earn some yields on it, but your BTC is locked up. So there comes the concept of liquid staking. Fortunately for us, we've been early to liquid staking. In general, we started building liquid staking in 2020, but with Atom, again, an asset which actually I think Cosmos is very well aligned with Bitcoin. The thought process is very much similar to Bitcoin. The ethos around decentralization, and I don't think any other ecosystem has taken that as seriously as Cosmos had. Obviously, I have like 20,000 problems with Cosmos, but let's not talk about that. I think for me, what is exciting is I actually got into the space looking at Ethereum. So I was graduating in 2019 from uni, and I saw Ethereum smart contracts, got really excited by it. As an engineer, the moment you see something like smart contracts, you're bound to get excited. So I started tinkering around with it, playing with it, and Ethereum was the first thing that got me into the space. And then I come from a background where, we kind of always thought about cash flows at my home as well. Like my dad would always like think about cash flows. And so for me, it was always about yields as well. And fortunately for me, I met Tushar in 2019, who's the co-founder of pSTAKE. And he had a very, very nice thesis around staking, which was all around yields. So staking was quite early. Nobody was, at least not a lot of people were talking about staking. There were like two staking chains, right? pSTAKes, Tezos and Cosmos. And there were 20 others who were talking about building something for staking. So we got early into POS because of the fact that it, provides yields. So had this thesis around yields. We want to look at cash flows and yields. And then over time, as my worldview evolved, and we started seeing the world that we're living in today, I've actually pretty much my entire portfolio used to be in ETH, held some Atom for a bit, but then transitioned over time entirely into Bitcoin because of the world that we live in, and Bitcoin provides a hedge against that world, right? So for me, Bitcoin is more than, again, I get excited by the tech just as much as everyone else here. But for me, I actually really think we're in a shitty place right now, and Bitcoin is the one that's gonna get us out of this. If you're not holding on to Bitcoin, you're in a very difficult spot. So it's not just about, today we are building for Bitcoin, so let's talk about Bitcoin in a way where it sounds very sexy or cool, but it's actually the belief in Bitcoin that made us want to build for Bitcoin. And I think the fact that we've always looked at yields and cash flows, it is a perfect combination to build liquid staking for Bitcoin.
Amazing. I think, it's a saying that, yields dictate finance. I think it's inevitable that Bitcoin yields will dictate crypto. With how the landscape is growing, the builders that we have today in this ecosystem, I think it's pretty much inevitable. Talking about yields and Bitcoin, or rather, touching upon the topic of BTCfi, I think there are three major prongs in a way of growing BTCfi, or even trying to understand what BTCfi is. I think first of those is yields. The second is a security perspective. And the third is the infra side to actually scale these things. And then I think an yield generating Bitcoin is going to be something that is bullish for all chains, right? Not just the Bitcoin network, not just any L2s, not just layer ones, not just Ethereum, Solana, but for all chains that will ever exist. So Peter, I wanted to get to know from you. Can you talk a bit about these yields for Bitcoin, where they're coming from, and what's the general state of yields in this BTCfi landscape?
Look, the great thing with Bitcoin is it's a completely and utterly open, decentralized protocol in itself, right? Which means that it's a complete and utter free market. Like the problem we've had in the past with yields and lending and leverage, etc., is we've always been having to trust this third party, this entity that we don't know how trustworthy they are. We don't know how much we can, believe what they say or what they're doing with the Bitcoin or whatever it may be, right? So we've always had to try and rely on this centralized body. This whole move we're going to be going through over the next 4, 8, 12, 15 years, wherever it may be, is going to be a complete and utter undoing of all of this. We'll be able to trust actual protocols, trust actual smart contracts, trust the reality that's happening in the space itself, because we'll be able to see everything directly on chain. And I think this has been the biggest problem that's been happening in the space. And probably one of the biggest challenges we have as communicators within this space is trying to re-educate people who have been rugged by Celsius, BlockFi, whatever else it may be, to understanding that this wasn't a crypto or Bitcoin problem. The reason you got rugged was because it was a centralized problem. So as we open up this whole space and allow different protocols to flourish and different ecosystems to open up within the Bitcoin space, we're going to see a complete and utter competition between yields and different people and different lending protocols, but it'll be based on real, true values, right? Whereas actual people who are willing to pay yields or willing to lend out at certain rates in a complete free market level, right? Which we won't have seen really anywhere else in the world before. So I'm super excited by this because I think it's just going to unlock a whole new level to the world. I was speaking to somebody who's really big in Africa, and they were talking about having to borrow money to invest into kind of African shops and real estate, and if businesses want to lend and borrow to further their business. And just because they're in Africa, the cost of borrowing is so much higher, right? And that's not how the world should be. As we start rolling out yields, borrowing, etc., in the Bitcoin ecosystem, it'll be the most level playing field that the world has ever seen before, right? And that's what Bitcoin's all about, right? It's about making everything unique, everyone be able to compete, everyone have a fair shot at the world. So I'm super excited by this whole kind of next chapter. I don't think we're there yet. There's different protocols and different things being discussed and being built right now. But I think we're going to see some of the most groundbreaking stuff being built on the most secure blockchain in the world. And our job as either marketeers or builders is to make sure that we get the message loud and clear that because it's a smart contract, because it's built on Bitcoin, that it is actually more trustworthy than going to your centralized organization.
Absolutely. I think, this very well highlighted point that you mentioned, which is around accessibility, right? I think Bitcoin was one of the first assets that was accessible to all. And when it becomes yield generating, it'll also be the first asset that is also generating yield and is accessible to all. I think it is very much easier to kind of educate people when it comes to why Bitcoin has yields, because the notion of Bitcoin, the idea of Bitcoin, because it has so many definitions which are not also exclusively wrong to each. I think Bitcoin is something else, and that is what makes it beautiful as well, right? So the idea to educate people about why Bitcoin yields exist is much easier than any other asset out there. So that is a great point that you highlighted. I know that I think you are short on time, but we'd love to get your thoughts on just the BTCfi versus, let's say, the ETH DeFi summer that happened, the landscape the growth that happened. Is it right to first of all compare these two things? And if so, how do you see things growing?
Yeah, I'm of the camp that the Ethereum was the test net, right? And we've learned everything that's ever was needed to be learned now over on Ethereum and over on different chains. And now it's all time to build the things that actually work, that actually had real value on the communities on Bitcoin, right? So, I can pretty much guarantee right now there is going to be a Bitcoin DeFi summer or whatever you want to call it. And for two reasons, right? One, because it just makes sense from like an actual building and consumer perspective. But number two, the amount of people that are investing right now in this kind of Bitcoin L2 infrastructure just means naturally there's going to be so much noise in the space talking about what's getting built and talking about the benefits of Bitcoin layer 2s that just by default it's going to happen anyway, right? This is kind of how markets work. When money starts going to invest in one area, naturally, it gets more of the headlines within the space. So, I'm super bullish on Bitcoin DeFi. I think it's going to be the real turning point, in the complete and utter crypto cycle, right? Where people just stop talking about everything else and just start focusing on Bitcoin. But it's super crucial that we don't, in this process, probably over these next couple of years, either build too fast that we leave holes behind us that we can get exposed, And two, make sure that we are building and partnering people with actual ethics, right? And this is where for me as someone from the community, really, I try and emphasize is right now there's, I don't know, 100 Bitcoin layer 2s, right? And in reality, we're going to be left with 10 that are actually probably pretty good, of which 5 will actually work properly, right? So when we're looking at partnering within the space, or when we're looking at kind of utilizing these protocols, first and foremost, let's make sure they actually are having Bitcoin finality. And second of all, let's make sure that they've got the same ethos and same partnership angles as us, right? Because our team is pure and simple Bitcoin believers, right? I call us modern maxis. A modern maxi is someone that believes Bitcoin is the most important asset in the space, but we don't really care how it gets there, right? Like we can do something somewhere else, but as long as it's got Bitcoin finality, we're okay with it, right? So I call that a modern maxi, someone that just wants Bitcoin finality. We don't care about anything else. So as long as we're partnering people with that same belief system and not people that believe something else, I think we're going to have such a great ecosystem that is going to be super powerful for all parts of the world that would never have had access to this level of finance. And they can all utilize it knowing full well this is secured by Bitcoin and not some random shitcoin, right? And that for me is the most important thing, as a builder. But yeah, I am short of time. I'll keep my ear on this one. I've got to shoot in 5 minutes, but thanks so much for having me on. I think this is a really great discussion. And if you want to drag me on or any of the team on in anything else in the future, then please just, let me know. It's great to see.
Absolutely, sir. It's been a pleasure having you, and to listen to your thoughts, Peter. I think some very insightful ones there. Actually on the same topic, maybe from Jeff or Ingamar on from your perspective, because Bitcoin has been a passive asset for the biggest time, right? Since inception, there's never been a concept of yield on Bitcoin. I think what people perceive as yield might just be the price appreciation that has happened for Bitcoin over the past few years. But as maybe the volatility dies down for Bitcoin's price to fluctuate a lot, maybe people start comparing that as a risk-free rate on Bitcoin, which is okay, fine. If on average Bitcoin is going to move 10%, 20% a year, what then it enables is to build DeFi on top of it. So from that perspective, that Bitcoin has suddenly become a very active and yield-generating asset. What are your thoughts there, Jeff or Ingamar, anyone?
Sorry, I can go first. Yeah. Yeah, I think that is a great question, and I think so. So first, I think Bitcoin is much cheaper than Ethereum in the DeFi sense, which is right now if you want to relocate some people's Ethereum, it's kind of hard because users Ethereum they're in staking, restaking, like all kinds of yields. So it's very expensive to get those Ethereum. But on the other hand, when we talk to all these Bitcoin whales, in Asian area, in Singapore, in Hong Kong, basically their Bitcoin just stay in their wallet forever. And they don't have intention to do any DeFi around this Bitcoin because the risks you are taking and the very little yield you are getting. So people just choose not to do that. So I think Bitcoin is much cheaper. So right now, if you come to somebody with a very mature plan with like the very high security level, and also when you can offer them like very high yield, probably they will take a shot. Like look at Merlin sales staking program. So if you stake Bitcoin in early February and you get the tokens launch in late April, we calculate that. So basically you get about 130 to 150% APY for staking those Bitcoin. And I mean Merl is like launched in a very I would say like a down market, but still you get all these APYs. And also the Bitcoin you stake in February is about 40K, and in April it's like 64K. So the first thing I think is like Bitcoin is much cheaper, to get right now. So that's why all these protocols, they are trying to get as much as Bitcoin they want. I think the second thing is, if you compare Ethereum to ERC20 tokens, the valuation, the market cap is about 1-to-1 at bull market. So basically, you have Ethereum like billions of dollars Ethereum market cap, and also you have all these ERC20 tokens with the same amount of market cap. But look at Bitcoin right now. You have $1.4 trillion value with Bitcoin, but all these Bitcoin like native assets such as BRC20, like ruins and also Bitcoin layer 2 tokens, Bitcoin DeFi protocol tokens. If you combine all of them together, it's about 100 to 200 to 1. So that ratio is like super early right now. So when we see these Bitcoin related assets tokens going up, market cap going up, you will see like lots of DeFi protocols around those assets, such as like DEX, Perp, lending protocol. So I think the potential is there. So when these assets go up, in the next 3 to 4 years, I think Bitcoin will be active again because these assets are traded more, for Bitcoin. Like our Merlin chain right now, we have like over $1 billion transaction volume for DEX, but the DEX is about these assets to Bitcoin, not these assets to stable coins. So when you have this kind of liquidity and trading volume, the Bitcoin assets will be more active as well. And the third thing we recognize, lately is like when we talk to these Ethereum layer twos, these ZK rollups, these ZK rollup Ethereum layer twos, they also want Bitcoin come to their ecosystems because they want new users. Right now, like most of the Ethereum layer twos are like with less users and transaction volume and attention from the market. But if those Merlin Bitcoin wrapped version of Bitcoin and also those BRC20 and ruins tokens coming to their chains and building dApps and DeFi there, that will get them users and volume as well. So I do think for these three reasons, I do think like today is a start for BTCfi, and for the next 6 months, 12 months, more people will talk about BTCfi, and we are here to build with all you guys and the great builders, and we can definitely make this happen.
Absolutely, sir.
I would also add to that, Bitcoin has just the largest wealth of untapped liquidity. We all know that a lot of Bitcoin whales, Bitcoin miners, they don't really mess with DeFi. And I've spoken with several miners through the years, like, hey, we've got ways to borrow stable coins against Bitcoin in a non-custodial way. They're like, that's cool, but we like just sitting on it. We'd rather trust this bank that we've known for years. There's like a huge education process that comes with these new DeFi primitives because the trust assumptions are different. And, it's very, very, alien a concept to these Bitcoin whales and miners. But what we're seeing now with, this wave of Bitcoin layer twos is that the incentives are so high. There's so much, money, especially with the Asian VCs coming into the space with EVM and layer twos comes tokens to speculate on, for project building on top of Bitcoin. So there's lots more room to speculate. There's lots more incentives for investing in the space. So now finally, miners are starting to dip their toes into Bitcoin layer twos. I know some are investing in Bitcoin layer two projects. And I've even heard a couple are even committing some liquidity to these, new chains, these new layer two rollups. And so it's happening at a faster rate than I kind of expected. So yeah, with new tech comes, new experimentation, but also, a period of educating, these potentially new users that could kind of grow the TVL of Bitcoin DeFi.
Yeah, that's very rightly put. I think because essentially, I think what we discussed briefly as well, that everyone has a different notion of Bitcoin, and to kind of narrow it down or to put it into perspective of yields or DeFi for Bitcoin, I think we as an ecosystem have a very important job at our hands to not only do this for the biggest whales institutions, but also for the average Bitcoiner, for the newcomer, because essentially security is always going to be that highest priority, right? If tomorrow, touch wood, anything happens to any protocol, it's done for it, right? So I think very much agree with your point. Maybe Mikil, because, we've not come to you for quite some time, touching on this particular aspect of security when it comes to yields, how important it is going to be to change this mindset or behavior, and how can that be better done, because, for example, I think pSTAKE has partnered with leading custodians for the liquid staking solution. Is it going to be activities just like these or some other things that we will have to do for the space?
I think it's I mean, it's a very difficult question because where different people have different views when it comes to security, right? Like you could argue having a custodian is less secure than building something fully decentralized. I think, and again, I'm not a critic at all. I just think more, again, I want to be more pragmatic about this. So if you have to be more pragmatic about it, you have to be like, okay, it's very early for BTC DeFi today. And you're already seeing significant traction on chains like Merlin, right? Like they've been killing it. So you're already starting to see that traction, and it's still very early days. Now, the question you want to ask yourself is, do you have like 100% faith and belief in the tech that is ready? Now, I'm not saying that the tech is not there yet. I'm saying there's a lot of room for improvement. So for us, it is quite straightforward to decide and go ahead with, let's say, a custodian to make sure that, and this is not a random custodian, right? You want to go after and work with custodians that have been around for a long enough time. So I think given those perspectives, I think it makes sense to take a very security first approach, because you don't want a situation like Eat DeFi where you have, Eat DeFi somewhere where you have like 20,000 people are okay to lose their ETH, I think, and maybe I sound very like, maxi like right now when I say this. People might be okay to lose their ETH and 20 other coins, but they will not be okay with losing their BTC. If somebody loses their BTC, they will probably come after you in so many ways you can't imagine. So I think you want to be very, very careful with people's BTC. So as a protocol, you want to definitely take a very, very security first approach. But at the same time, you want to move towards a decentralized solution as much as possible. You want to move towards solutions that decentralize and are robust enough. I think in 2020, when we first built out a liquid staking solution, that was using a bridge between Ethereum and Cosmos, and the bridge was centralized. And I remember having spoken to so many people who did not care about bridges, and they were like, oh, bridges, centralized bridge. They did not even question about that. A year later, bridges started getting hacked. We survived because we were a centralized bridge. It's a good thing to be a centralized bridge in some situations. But I think today we are in the same spot where nobody questions a lot of things that happen. And I'm glad, a lot of BTC L2s have gone down the path of using custodians and not relying 100% on the tech, because it's still evolving. And, I think it's evolving at a very good pace. So I'm very bullish about the ecosystem and the way developments have happened. But I think security as a concept is like, yeah, it has a huge spectrum. You can choose to be on one side of the spectrum and say I'm right. You can choose to be on the other side of the spectrum. But a pragmatic approach from my perspective is one where you realize that the tech is still evolving and evolving at a very rapid pace. So you want to be in a position where you work with trusted parties and you work with teams who have shown that that they can do the same thing over and over again without getting exploited. So that's kind of how we think about security, or at least I think about security.
Yes, I think it makes sense. I think the middle ground is something that we'll probably end up getting to. But yeah, yes, Jeff, please go ahead. I think you had some point on this.
Yes, yeah, like I do want to add some points as the security problem. I think, for Bitcoin DeFi, I think security is like the most important thing that people really care, because like, I can I can take the loss, not participating in the DeFi movement, but still keep my Bitcoin. And for Bitcoin holders, I mean, they care nothing like except Bitcoin. And I just want to talk a little bit about like how Merlin does this kind of thing, because we all know, like on day one on every podcast and interview we said Merlin is a sidechain, to be honest, because like I don't think there's any layer two for Bitcoin, to be honest. But I think everyone else is branding like their product as layer two. That's why we changed Merlin sidechain to Merlin layer two. But like we are honest from day one, there's no layer two for like ZK rollups for Bitcoin, which is true. And just imagine like Ethereum in 2018, it's like and until today, like 6 years after, we finally see some ZK rollups and OP rollups. So I think this takes time, and I mean, you can sit there and wait for the technology to be very mature, but also, we can do something about it. So what Merlin does is, first we work with, like lots of MPC solution company like Fireblocks, Kobo, Coinbase Prime, Binance Seifu, Anti-Alpha. So we're working with like all of them to make sure this system is stable, and also like they're in charge of billions of dollars, and they have very, very, very few security issues, and that's like something we can do, because on Bitcoin layer 1 there's no smart contract, so everything you do is multi-sig, to be honest. And this kind of multi-sig is the only so what matters is like who is in party with you for the multi-sigs. Is there like several guys in the basement, or there are some like institutions trying to protect these assets just like you, and also you have all kinds of insurance and reinsurance for these assets, and we never lie about that. So I think first, everyone's building a sidechain. Second thing is I think everyone else is trying to improve this, like with all the Bitcoin layer 2s, and also like Babylon, and that's why Merlin is going to have this proof of staking mechanism in Q3. We are going to have the phase 1 probably this month, and we are going to complete all these phases by the end of Q3. And when that happens, we will have like very like a lot amount of decentralized validators to do the validating, and also they stake Bitcoin. So when bad things happens, their Bitcoin can be slashed. And also, I think we are the only ones who are still doing ZK rollups. We have ZK proofs like in every minute, and we upload these ZK proofs and raw transaction data to Celestia, to Newbit, to B Square, to all these DA layer for the users, for the validators to verify these ZK proofs. So what I was trying to say is, this is a long way. Probably takes more than 6 years to actually have a chain that shares the same security level of Bitcoin layer 1. But right now we definitely don't have this kind of a technology to support that. No matter what people tell you, no matter what people write in their white paper, and so we have to face this reality, and we never lie, and we never say we share the same security level of Bitcoin layer 1, which doesn't make sense at all to me. I mean, nothing shares the same security of Bitcoin layer 1, not even U.S. government or any government. So,
Well,
so
don't
yeah,
forget Lightning Network.
yeah, I don't think so personally, to be honest.
I mean, it
Yeah,
has the
I
same
think we
security as
touched upon
Bitcoin.
this fact. Economic security is a meme. Please, sorry, Ingamar, please go ahead.
But no, overall, you're right. A lot of these L2s, are not literally, sharing the same security as Bitcoin. It's definitely used for marketing term and just for a lack of better terminology. But either way, we're still moving forward and building, solutions on this imperfect infrastructure, because we're not going to wait 10 years for, perfect security, infrastructure for Bitcoin to start solving problems for real people all around the world. That's why we're all here. We're building with what we can, to solve problems and for solutions that function just well enough based on your security assumptions. So, there's some that would rather trust a bank because that's what they're comfortable with. And there's some that are very, very idealistic, and they'll trust that new tech, that new bridge that's entirely decentralized and it's completely new and experimental, and they'll put all their money in it because it fits their ideals. And then there's people like us who are in the middle who would rather, trust a federated multi-sig bridge, among a handful of startups more than they would some centralized, regulated entity.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Actually, I think, and the fact that we're here talking about Bitcoin L2s being sidechains and not L2s is phenomenal. I think you go back to 2019, 2020, and you see all Ethereum sidechains pushing their narratives as all of them were L2s. The barely like one or two of them who would probably say, oh, we were sidechains. But the fact that, we have like Merlin acknowledging them being a sidechain, and a lot of others actually acknowledging that, I'm still accepting the fact that we have to work towards building this tech up into a place where it actually is where it's supposed to be, because I don't think anything is perfect, and if you're waiting for perfection to get started, you're never going to get started. So just get started and see where it goes and work towards making this as robust and as secure as possible. And I'm very glad that there's so many people working on this problem.
Yeah, absolutely, Mikil. I think it was one of the things that you had highlighted once. I remember. I think for coordination systems, it's always a progressive approach, which is great, right? Whether that is decentralization, whether that is decentralization of security as well. I think a progressive approach is the best, and that's actually great to see Merlin also come up with the staking approach. Maybe pSTAKE can build liquid staking for that as well. We just build liquid staking for everything Bitcoin going forward, and actually, one of the points actually was, as infra scales and as it becomes easier to become not layer twos but side chains, there will be these ecosystems that grow as well, right? And with the growing ecosystems, everyone will tend to be a generalistic one which has its own DeFi going on, unless it's a particular side chain that is solving a very niche problem, like how app chains are supposed to. So do you guys see the fragmentation of yields be a very big problem? Because we are in a phase wherein Bitcoin was not yield generating. Now suddenly, although not overnight, suddenly Bitcoin has become yield generating, and we are kind of heading into a direction that is going to be super fast, that gives someone very fragmented yield opportunities. So do you think this is a problem, or do you think this is an opportunity, and how this evolves from here? And this is for everyone out here.
If I understand the question, are you speaking about like the difference in Bitcoin pegs that will emerge and these new Bitcoin LST that'll emerge from all of these layer twos? Because if so, I think that we know it will be a problem, but it's not a problem yet because obviously, not all these layer twos are live yet. But I do see that as being a quote unquote problem, but a good problem to solve, because I think there's a huge market there for interchanging between Bitcoin layer twos, because they'll have their own exclusive dApps, they'll have their own exclusive communities, and they'll each have their own ways of generating yield.
Yeah, that's very true. Mikil or Ingamar, any take on this of how what happens when these yields get very fragmented?
I think we wait for it when the problem comes. Let's get yields on Bitcoin first.
Yeah, I think like fragmented is like another version of decentralization, right? So at least like users have, like choice to make, to trust which, ticker, like do they trust this like BTCB or WBTC or Merlin Bitcoin or like Lorenzo Soft and like all these, LSD solutions. So yeah, I think the users will like finally make decisions like to which ecosystem they would like to participate and like yields they would like to have. But like right now when Merlin is moving forward, we actually see it's a long road. Like today is like too early to talk about this, but it's a very long road. Just like for example, like when we are distributing all this Merlin Bitcoin and Soft BTC to all the other chains, like Linear Scroll, ZK-Link, and when we distribute this liquidity there, and we have to find liquidity to trade against these tokens, such as like Ethereum. So for example, right now there's about like a $500 million Bitcoin into other Ethereum layer 2s from Merlin, and we have to like provide at least like $50 million value Ethereum to trade with that Bitcoin. And like this is a long, like it's a very long process with Merlin chain, with the bridge, with the RT, and also with the DeFi protocol, the DEX on the destination chain. So I think it's a long road to build this kind of liquidity, because like if the ticker doesn't have liquidity on these chains, this ticker just doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah, that's perfectly put and very true. I think the liquidity point that you mentioned, I think BTC also being so highly liquid, or also sitting on the sidelines to be deployed in capital, I think that may also not lead to fragmentation being that big a problem. Obviously, it is great for decentralization, good for opportunities, but that can also mean that it can accommodate multiple such ecosystems to not just exist but flourish. With Bitcoin, I think there can be multiple layer twos, or I'm so sorry for saying it, layer twos, multiple side chains that can exist and flourish at the same time.
Yeah, I think last,
Yeah, Mikil.
I wanted to acknowledge this point also, because I think Jeff talked about this a little bit, which was like moving liquidity onto other chains, right? What Merlin is doing, and I actually feel like in the short term, that is kind of what leads to BTC DeFi summer kind of play, which is because these chains don't have access to liquidity. Any ETH liquidity that they have is minimal, and the amount of liquidity that you can transport to another chain by having a yield token on Bitcoin, or just a DeFi native Bitcoin token. I think that itself makes a really big difference, and I think that's a beautiful strategy to like get the Bitcoin DeFi summer kind of kick-started. So I really like the fact that Merlin is like taking tokens onto Linear, Scroll, and these other chains. I think it's a beautiful approach to getting Bitcoin DeFi started.
Yeah, and Sovryn wants to be a part of it. So for years we've been deployed on Rootstock, which you guys may have been familiar with. It's been around for 6-7 years. We recently deployed on Bob, build on Bob. We have AMM swaps there in UniV2, UniV3 style. And we have WBTC trading there. We have TBTC trading there. We actually even have runes trading there. The first one is Powa. And we're looking to have more runes trading on there as well. And we're looking to establish our DEX on as many of the top Bitcoin layer 2s as possible. And with each ecosystem, we want to adapt it to fit their audience. So we're just happy to be a part of it.
Amazing, sir. Yeah. Lastly, before maybe actually, what we can do if time persists, we can, invite a few people on the stage as well if they have any questions. Actually, if you have any questions or if you want to talk to any of our speakers today, or just, put forward your thoughts about Bitcoin, just send in a request right now and we'll get you on as a speaker. And meanwhile, what we can do, just go around once more is, if you foresee BTCfi summer or BTC DeFi to flourish, talking about the projects or talking about what you're building, where do you see yourself become a leader in what particular niche? Maybe Ingamar, do you want to go first?
Sure. Wait, what was the question again? Just what our plan is?
Yeah. If BTCfi summer reaches Valhalla in a way, where do you see Sovryn BTC being a leader in what particular niche?
Great. Well, I think we've gotten quite a good handle when it comes to creating the all-in-one DeFi suite where you can bridge your Bitcoin and swap, lend, borrow, leverage, mint Bitcoin-backed stablecoins all in one place. We want to have that all-in-one experience where you just go to one single app and you can just toggle which Bitcoin layer 2 you want to trade on, and it shifts to whatever app you want to use in that one website. So the way things work out now, it's like you gotta go to this website, download this wallet, go to this website to bridge, go to this website to swap, then go to this other one to lend and borrow. So we kind of mastered this all-in-one experience on Rootstock years ago. We're trying to do the same thing, but also with some updates to our applications on Bob. But I think a lot of these new layer 2s will want their premier place for just AMM swaps. So I think we're starting with just that for a couple more deployments this year, but we do want to revisit and see what the need is for each ecosystem. Maybe one ecosystem might want a Bitcoin-backed stablecoin product, with the LSTs as their collateral. I really want to explore that actually. We built one a couple years ago called Zero, which was basically a liquidity fork, where instead of ETH as the collateral, it's Bitcoin. So I think we're starting with just deploying swap dexes on these Bitcoin layer 2s. So we'll try to be as ubiquitous as possible. We have a very, very small team. And we're trying to go through this as meticulously as possible. But, I'm really excited to explore, reimagining our products on Rootstock, with these new layers that have a lot more capabilities and less limitations than Rootstock has. So just, follow us at Sovryn BTC on Twitter, sovryn.app. If you want to check out how it looks right now.
Beautiful, sir. And I think it'd be nice to see what you guys cook coming next. Jeff, do you want to touch upon where do you see Merlin finding its leading niche in BTCfi?
Thank you for the question. And yeah, so from day one, our slogan is make Bitcoin fun again. And I think our main goal and mission here are two things. First, to actually make Bitcoin fun, which is why we have all these Bitcoin layer one assets on Merlin chain. Like right now, we have like over 300,000 NFTs from Bitcoin layer one. Like with valuation over $200 million. And also we have all these BRC20 and ruins here, and we are launching, Merlin Phantom, which is a great, I would say it's great innovation to have the fungible token to non-fungible token, back and forth and stuff. So yeah, so we are building like lots of stuff around Bitcoin layer one assets, and this is where we started, and we are so close to these communities, and we love them. We love those assets and users, and we want to build from there. And in the past 2 to 3 months, there are lots of meme coins, lots of DApps, SocialFi, GameFi, DAX, perp, on Merlin, and all these DApps around these, Bitcoin native assets. That is like the way we're heading. And the second thing is trying to bring, the secure ways of having native yields for Bitcoin. So for example, right now, if you have one Bitcoin from layer one, you deposit that into Merlin, and you will, and you can stake that Bitcoin. I mean, you can stake and unstake freely, which is our POS systems. So you can have, the network fees, by contributing in this post mechanism, and then you can restake Merlin Bitcoin into Solve, which is ART, and also on other ART solutions as well, and to have their points and their future tokens. And also we are working with Babylon, so you can add that layer of yields to that as well. And also we are working with Anti-Alpha with funding rate, which provides like 10 to 20% APY by trading those tokens like Ethena. And then you can use this wrapped and restaked Bitcoin ticker to other chains, to other DeFi protocols, to other EVM layer 2s, layer 1s, and then have the yields from there. So yeah, so I think this is a long way. This is a long road. So we're just at the beginning of this, and we want to provide fun experience and also security a level for Bitcoin users on Merlin. And yeah, I think we just started, and probably we'll talk more in the next 3 months, 6 months, and hope we can all come here and together make Bitcoin fun again.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love that from you. I think we ought to look out for maybe caps from Merlin that say MBFA, make Bitcoin fun again. That'd be good to see. Finally, Mikil, in this niche of BTCfi, where do you see pSTAKE leading?
I think for us it's very simple. It's to find innovative and secure ways to give access to yields to BTC holders. That's the only objective, and will be very true to our goals, which is staying laser focused on providing yields to BTC holders in safe and secure manners, and trying to make sure they can use the liquid stake Bitcoin token or the liquid Bitcoin token in different DeFi dApps on Bitcoin L2s and sidechains, and make Bitcoin fun again, like Jeff just said.
Amazing. I think we are trying to get someone as a speaker. If not, I think I can just look at a question that has come from the audience, and this is again open for anyone to answer. This question comes from Andy, who is the co-founder of the Rollup, which is a media / content house for I think all things Rollup in a way. The question that he asks is, what trust assumptions should users be concerned with in the current state of BTCfi?
I think the question is a little bit hard to understand. What trust assumptions? I think the most important trust or most important assumption because of misleading statements could be like BTC L2s are L2s, but they are sidechains, and there's MPC bridges, custodians involved. I think that's something that people should be well aware of. But I think all in all, I would say there's not many like vague trust assumptions out here. It's pretty much the same as everywhere else. I think this whole ZK thing is a little bit ZK rollup thing is a little bit over marketed. I feel like those are things that we need to be careful about, but I don't see like too many trust assumptions. Again, the question is a little bit vague also because but I think the bridging aspect is something that people should definitely be aware of.
Yeah, I think that's a very well put point, that especially around L2s, that's I think something that everyone kind of assumes, because that's the notion of an L2, that it inherits the economic security of the underlying L1, which is not true in this case for most of the chains. So that's a well put point, sir.
Yeah, I was going to say, in addition to whatever bridging mechanism is happening, it's very likely a multi-sig style bridge. Just, be mindful of that. Also be mindful of how long it takes to bridge your assets back to Bitcoin main chain or whatever chain you want to bridge back to. And it also depends on where you are using your assets on this layer 2 or sidechain, however you wish to call it. There's always going to be smart contract risk with these protocols. So, I would certainly do your diligence on their audits. Is their team doxed? Who backed them? How long they've been around. Pretty much the same type of things to watch out for if you were participating in any DeFi in any ecosystem. So just understand that, these Bitcoin layer 2s are very, very fresh. There will be some hiccups, and it's very much an at your own risk type of, environment.
Yeah, definitely some wise words for everyone to keep a note of, and never forget, get the basics right. That's something that we can all do, as well as educate as much as possible to everyone. Amazing, guys. I think before a closing note, what I want to touch upon finally is we see a co-host account that's called Stacked. Mikil, do you want to talk a bit about what Stacked is?
Yeah, absolutely. So Stacked is a podcast I recently started with Yaron and Tashar to talk about Bitcoin, and I will hopefully get Jeff and Ingamar and a few others on the show very soon, and we'll talk a lot about Bitcoin. We'll go into every specific detail that we've kind of touched upon here and there today. And it's the first time I'm doing a podcast because I'm like, there's so many things happening in the Bitcoin ecosystem for me to understand things and then stack some knowledge from very smart people, plus also give the audience a very nice understanding of the Bitcoin landscape. I think it's between the intersection of at the intersection of Bitcoin and DeFi, because both those things excite me quite a bit, and I think it excites a lot of us here, right? So yeah, that's what Stacked is about. Follow Stacked, and we'll keep you posted on the next few episodes, which should be super exciting.
Amazing. I think stacking some knowledge is a good place to put it that way. All right. I think we've come to a close to this very, very insightful, very diverse discussion. And I think the best part was that, we were kind of very open about it and, spoke our truths in a way. So first of all, thank you so much to all the speakers for taking the time to join us today. This was the very first series or very first episode of Staking Sats with pSTAKE. We've talked about the state of BTCfi, why everyone is building on Bitcoin, what Bitcoin stands for, where we see the landscape moving ahead, what are the main things to keep in mind as a new user or even as an institution. I'm sure this has been very insightful for everyone that is tuned in. And to everyone that is tuned in, we thank you a lot as well for joining in, taking the time today. We've had wonderful guests, Jeff from Merlin, Ingamar from Sovryn, Peter from Velar, who had to unfortunately leave early, and obviously Mikhil from pSTAKE joined in today. And I wish everyone a very happy Bitcoin Pizza Day. If you have the calories remaining, do have a slice of pizza. If not, it's still fine. And we'll catch you in the next space sometime soon. Thank you so much.